Some storms don't come to destroy your life, my friends. They come to destroy the parts of you that keep trusting the wrong people. Here's the truth I want you to hold on to from the very beginning. They will always feel worse over time. Not because you punished them, not because you chased them or tried to force regret into their life, but because time has a perfect memory and silence has a way of exposing what pride tries to hide. That's the hook. Time is not on the side of the one who played with your heart. It's on yours. Before we go deeper, do me a favor. Press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. Because what we're about to unpack might finally free you from the idea that you lost. You didn't lose. You just stepped into a different timeline where the truth arrives later. For them. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing on a calm, quiet beach at sunset. The waves are soft, the sky is peaceful, and for the first time in a long time, nothing is loud. No overthinking, no constant checking, no begging your phone to light up. But far out there, beyond the horizon, there's a storm forming. Not above you, but above the person who thought walking away from you had no cost. They're out there floating around, smiling for photos, acting unbothered, telling their friends, "I'm fine, I'm good, I moved on," while the very waves they kicked up with their choices are slowly turning into something much larger behind them. That's how time works. It doesn't slam them on day one. It waits, it collects, it builds interest in every careless decision they make. And silence. Silence is like that quiet friend in the group who knows everyone's secrets but never says a word. People underestimate them until the truth comes out. Let's break one of the biggest lies right now. We are taught to believe the one who gets left behind suffers more. But reality is not that simple, my friends. The one who feels the truth first is the one who heals first. The one who avoids the truth the longest is the one who suffers the longest. At the beginning, yes, you feel the ache. You feel the emptiness. You feel the questions. But what they don't tell you is that feelings faced are feelings processed, and feelings avoided are feelings multiplied. Your silence is not weakness. It's not you losing. It's not proof that they won. Your silence is emotional strength disguised as stillness. It's you stepping out of the circus. It's you refusing to keep auditioning for a role you were overqualified for from the start. Think of it this way. When they walked away, their ego was on a high. They're like someone who just chugged cheap energy drink confidence. Loud, wired, and absolutely sure they're right. Give it time. Ego fades like cheap perfume. Strong at first, embarrassing later. You might even see them posting, laughing, looking happy. That's okay. Let them act. Let them perform. Meanwhile, something else is happening under the surface. Your silence is planting seeds of awareness in their mind. At first, it's just a small thought. Wow, they haven't reached out. Then later, did I misjudge them? And eventually, what if I actually lost something real? Your silence is like holding up a mirror. In the beginning, they laugh at the mirror, or ignore it, or turn it to the wall. But one night, in the quiet, when the noise dies down and the room is finally still, they'll be forced to look into it. That reflection will hit harder than any long message you could have ever sent. So my friends, don't think of silence as doing nothing. Think of it as letting time and truth work on your behalf. You are not powerless. You are positioning yourself. You're allowing the story to unfold without you throwing yourself into every scene. Let time do the damage their ego thought it had escaped. Let silence speak where your explanations used to get ignored. Your job is simple now. Protect your peace and let the universe handle the rest. Stay with me, because we're going to go even deeper into how this plays out over weeks, months, and years. For now, I want you to write this in the comments. Time favors me. Those 3 words are your reminder. Type it in, claim it, and don't forget to press like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Number 1. The slow burn of realization. Regret doesn't knock on the door the day they leave you. It waits until they're alone with the truth they thought they'd never have to face. At first, it never looks like regret. It looks like confidence. It looks like them walking away with a straight back, glued smile, maybe even a new distraction on their arm. It looks like them posting, laughing, living, while you sit there wondering, how can they be so okay? That question haunts people, my friends. You look at their life from the outside and think, did I really mean that little? But what you're seeing is not true. It's the first act, and the first act always belongs to the ego. Imagine this. You're watching a movie and the villain walks out of an explosion in slow motion, sunglasses on, not a scratch on them. Cool, untouchable, unbothered. But what you don't see yet are the fractures in the foundation behind them, the building that looks stable for a few seconds before it begins to crumble from the inside. That's what happens when someone treats you like you were optional and walks away like you were nothing. On the surface, they look fine. Inside, the cracks haven't started showing yet, but they will, because time doesn't ignore what the ego denies. Let's be honest, the first wave of pain usually hits you, not them. You're the one replaying conversations. You're the one staring at your screen. You're the one asking, were they ever serious? Did any of it mean anything? Fear wraps around you like a tight rope. Fear that you were never enough. Fear that they moved on in a day. Fear that you are the only one affected. And while you're having all these thoughts, you look at their life and see nothing but noise and movement. That's when the lie begins to whisper, they don't miss you. They never will. You lost. They won. But here is the lie we are going to break right now. The person who feels the pain first is not the loser. They're the one closest to healing. The slow burn of realization always arrives late for the one who runs from it. You didn't get the worst side of this. You got the honest side. They got the delayed consequences. Think of regret like a shadow. At noon, under a bright sun, the shadow looks small, almost invisible. They stand there, full of themselves, convinced they made the best decision. I'm free. I'm better off. They were too much. I don't need them. Their shadow barely touches their feet. But time passes. Evening comes. The light changes. That same shadow that once seemed small starts stretching longer and longer behind them. That's how realization works. Not loud, not instant, but stretched out over days, weeks, months, until even they cannot deny how far it reaches. You might be thinking, but why don't they feel it right away? Why am I the one on the floor while they're out there living? It's simple. You were emotionally present. You were emotionally honest. When things broke, you felt it. They weren't emotionally honest. So when things ended, they did what disconnected people always do. They ran to noise, ran to distractions, ran to anything that kept them from sitting alone with themselves. Your heart went through the fire. Theirs took the elevator to avoidance. But both paths have a price, my friends. Yours hurts early, theirs hurts late. And late pain is always heavier because it comes with the weight of all the denial stacked on top of it. There's another truth you need to hear. People don't get haunted by what they weren't given. They get haunted by what they carelessly threw away. Right now, you might be replaying all the times you were kind, understanding, patient, forgiving. You might be wondering, how could they just walk away from someone who gave them that? Because at the moment, they didn't see it as rare. They saw it as standard. They saw your softness as something always available, your understanding as something guaranteed. They thought you'd always be there, holding emotional space for them while they dipped in and out as they pleased. The slow burn begins the day they finally realize that what they misused was irreplaceable. There will be nights, far from now, where they're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and a memory of you floats up out of nowhere. Not the dramatic memory, a small one, the way you laughed at something silly, the way you checked on them when they were quiet, the way you knew what they needed before they said it. That's when the first inner whisper hits. I didn't appreciate that enough. At first, they swat it away. No, I'm fine. It's over. But the mind doesn't forget genuine safety. The soul doesn't forget where it felt seen. The slow burn of realization is built from 1,000 tiny moments they once brushed off. Why does this take so long for them? Because ego and awareness grow in opposite directions. The bigger their ego was at the start, the slower their awareness arrives. If they walked out with a high sense of superiority, thinking they were upgrading by losing you, that ego has a long way to fall. That fall doesn't happen in one dramatic scene. It happens in quiet thoughts, awkward silences, moments when they're surrounded by people but feel strangely empty. It happens when they get what they thought they wanted and feel nothing. It happens when they scroll past your name and feel a sting they don't know how to explain. The hardest part for you is surviving the phase where it looks like they're winning. That's where your fear screams the loudest. Fear that you'll never be valued. Fear that they've forgotten you completely. Fear that the story ended with you losing. But listen to this. The story doesn't end when they walk away. The story ends when you realize their leaving was the beginning of your becoming. Their realization is not your responsibility. Your becoming is. This is where you rise from fear. You don't rise by stalking their life. You don't rise by waiting for their apology. You rise by accepting that they're not supposed to feel what you feel at the same time. And that's okay. Your timeline is not broken because theirs looks louder right now. Your timeline is honest. Theirs is delayed. Instead of thinking, why are they not breaking? Start telling yourself, it's not my job to watch their collapse. It's my job to build my rise. The slow burn of realization on their side will happen whether you witness it or not. You don't have to see their tears, their regrets, their long nights. Life doesn't require an audience to deliver lessons. You just have to trust that everything they refuse to face will eventually sit down with them in a dark, quiet room and introduce itself by name. You are not crazy for caring. You are not weak for feeling. You are not foolish for giving your heart. What you experienced was real. What they're running from is also real. The difference is that you're choosing to face it now. That's bravery, not failure. The slow burn that's coming for them is not your revenge. It's their truth finally catching up. So let this be your shift. Stop waiting for the day they finally understand. Start walking into the day you finally do. You are not the one who will always hurt more. You are the one who heals sooner. Let their realization arrive on its own time. Yours starts now. Write this in the comments. I won't fear their timeline. Let that be your declaration. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you're not living for when their ego cracks. You're living for when your peace settles. And stay with me, because what comes next is how time quietly, relentlessly turns the entire story in your favor. Number 2. Time always turns the tables. Time is the only judge that never takes a bribe. It will always expose what ego tried to hide and balance what pride tried to tilt. In the beginning, it looks like they're on the winning side, doesn't it? They walk out with their chin raised, maybe with someone new, maybe with a life that looks suddenly exciting and full. They post, they perform, they tell themselves and everyone around them, I'm good, I'm better now, I have to do what's best for me. And you're sitting there thinking, so that's it? They get to hurt me and then go live their best life. It feels unfair. It feels one-sided. It feels like the universe made a mistake. But my friends, the universe doesn't rush. Time always takes the long way around, and that's exactly how it turns the tables. Imagine a seesaw in a playground. At first, they're up in the air, smiling, feeling tall, feeling powerful. You're down on the ground, feeling heavy, stuck, and low. Every memory pulls you down further. Every question about what went wrong adds weight to your side. You look up and see them laughing at the top and think, how is this fair? But here's what you don't notice right away. You're gaining something they're not: gravity. You're gaining grounding, self-awareness, and emotional muscle. While they float, you're stabilizing. While they run from the truth, you're sitting in it, learning from it, letting it shape you. And sooner or later, time leans its hand on your side of the seesaw, and everything starts to shift. Time has a funny way of stripping away illusions. It doesn't argue, it doesn't shout, it doesn't send a text at 2 a.m. explaining karma. It just quietly rearranges everything. At first, they feel light because they've dropped responsibility, they've dropped accountability, they've dropped you. But over time, what felt like freedom starts to feel like emptiness. When the attention fades, when the newness wears off, when life goes back to normal, they're left alone with the same unhealed patterns that made them take you for granted in the first place. They thought they escaped the mirror, but time always carries the mirror with it. You might be asking yourself, why do I have to hurt now while they get to enjoy themselves? Here's the hidden truth. You're paying your emotional bill up front. You're facing the grief, the disappointment, the confusion head-on. It's painful, it's draining, and it feels unfair, but it's honest. They, on the other hand, put their pain on a payment plan with no due date. They delay it, they avoid it, they pretend it doesn't exist. And the thing about delayed payments is that interest builds. By the time the bill lands in their hands, it's heavier than anything you carried in those early weeks. Think of time like water slowly wearing down stone. At first, the rock looks unbothered. It's solid, unchanged, confident, but the water doesn't stop. Drop by drop, day by day, it carves shapes into what once looked invincible. That's what happens to their ego. They look solid at first, like nothing could touch them, but time keeps flowing. Little moments chip away at their certainty. A random song, a familiar street, a joke that reminds them of you, a night where they're surrounded by people and still feel alone. Each moment is just a small drop. But time knows what it's doing. Drop by drop, the tables turn. They start to feel what you once felt, but in a different order. At first, they feel nothing, and you feel everything. Later, you start feeling lighter, calmer, more grounded, while they start feeling unsettled, restless, strangely bothered by things they can't explain. They might not show it. They might even double down on their performance, acting happier, louder, busier. But time is not fooled by how someone looks. Time works on how they feel when they're alone in their room and the show is over. The hardest part for you is trusting this process when you can't see behind the scenes. You don't see their thoughts at 3 a.m. You don't see them pausing over your name in their chat list. You don't see them hovering over old photos, pretending they just came across them. All you see is the highlight reel. But remember this, the highlight reel is never the full movie, and time always releases the director's cut. Their version of events, where they were the hero and you were the problem, begins to crack under the weight of reality. Slowly, they start to realize they didn't just lose a person. They lost a safe space, a steady presence, a real connection. Why do they think they're winning at first? Because in the moment of leaving, ego feels like relief. It tells them, you did what you had to do. You were right. They were too much. You deserve better. Ego hates discomfort, so it writes a story where they're always justified. But time doesn't protect those stories. Time tests them. Over months, their choices meet real life. New people don't give them the same depth. New situations don't come with the same patience. The better they thought they were walking into turns out to be shallow, temporary, thin. That's when time whispers, was it really them, or was it you? This is where rising from fear becomes your job. You cannot live your life staring at their side of the seesaw. You can't keep asking, have the tables turned yet? The tables will turn whether you stare at them or not. Your growth, your healing, your peace, that's your role in this story. Let time handle theirs. Your power comes from stepping out of the need to watch their journey and stepping into your own. Time always turns the tables in favor of the one who chooses growth over ego. It may not happen on your schedule. It may not be visible on your screen, but it happens inside the spaces they can't perform in. That's why you keep moving, you keep building, you keep becoming someone that even your old self wouldn't recognize. Write this in the comments to remind yourself. Time is on my side. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you trust the quiet work of time more than the loud noise of ego. And stay with me, because what comes next is how your silence becomes the very thing that makes those tables turn even faster. Number 3, your silence becomes the catalyst for their discomfort. Nothing unsettles the ego more than a silence it can't control and a person it no longer influences. At first, they mistake your silence for weakness. They see you go quiet and think, good, they finally stopped. They're done talking, done explaining, done asking. To them, it feels like they've won, like they've finally exhausted you into submission. They expect your silence to be a sign that you've given up. What they don't understand yet is that your silence isn't you collapsing, it's you calibrating. It's not you disappearing. It's you stepping into a different level of power they have no idea how to read. Imagine a room where someone has been shouting for hours. They're used to the noise, used to the back and forth, used to drama bouncing off the walls. Then suddenly, everything goes quiet. No arguing, no pleading, no reacting, just stillness. At first they feel relieved, no more confrontation, no more emotional reflection, but give it a moment. After a while, that silence stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling eerie. Every sound, every creak, every breath becomes louder. That's what happens inside them when you go quiet. Your silence turns up the volume on their own thoughts. They begin asking themselves questions they never had to ask before. Why aren't they chasing me? Why didn't they reply? Did I lose them more than I thought? Did I misjudge their worth? Those questions don't arrive as calm reflections. They arrive like tiny alarms that keep going off in the back of their mind. The people who once assumed your emotions were under their control start feeling uneasy when those emotions no longer answer them. Your silence doesn't just remove your presence, it removes their favorite source of validation. Your silence is not nothing. It's a mirror. When you stop explaining, all they're left with is their own behavior staring back at them. When you stop defending yourself, all they're left with is their own actions, their own patterns, their own choices. And here's the uncomfortable truth for them. They don't like what they see. As long as you kept talking, they could blame you. As long as you kept reacting, they could point the finger. See? They're emotional. They're dramatic. They're too much. But silence takes away that excuse. It forces them to sit with the part of the story where they are the main character in the damage. This is where their discomfort really begins. They check their phone expecting your name to show up like it always did, and it doesn't. They post something aimed at you, expecting a reaction, and nothing comes. They throw out a casual message, a little breadcrumb, a "Hey stranger," or "Hope you're good," not from care, but from curiosity and ego. And you don't jump the way you used to. Maybe you respond calmly, or maybe you don't respond at all. Either way, they feel it. That shift, that loss of control, that distance they can't cross with a quick text anymore. You might be wondering, why is it so difficult for me to stay silent if it's so powerful? Because silence confronts you too. In the beginning, your silence is full of noise, your thoughts, your fears, your old habits telling you to break the stillness and reach out. You're tempted to explain yourself just one more time, to send one last paragraph to prove your side of the story. You're scared that if you don't speak, they'll never understand. But my friends, they never refuse to understand because you didn't talk enough. They refused to understand because it was easier not to. Your silence isn't the problem. It's the solution you were afraid to choose. They think the silence is comfortable because they've used it as a weapon in the past. They've ignored messages. They've given half-hearted replies. They've disappeared, knowing it would make you anxious. That version of silence was about control. But now, the roles are reversed. This silence is not coming from confusion. It's coming from clarity. Not from panic, but from peace. That's why it rattles them. They can sense something different in it. There's no begging underneath, no chasing energy hidden between the lines. Your silence doesn't say, "I'm scared." It says, "I've decided." And that decision forces them into a new reality, one where they are no longer the center of your emotional universe. One where your life doesn't pause for their attention. One where their messages don't get immediate priority. One where your energy is being invested in yourself instead of poured into proving your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding it. Your silence becomes the line they didn't think you'd ever cross, and that's why it hits so deep. Little by little, that quiet begins to touch their pride. They might act like nothing's wrong, but they'll start testing you. A random emoji, a joke, a memory, a reaction to your story. None of this is accidental. It's ego fishing for proof. Do I still have access? Can I still get to them? Can I still stir something? The moment you don't respond the way they expect, a crack forms. It doesn't show on their face. It shows in their thoughts. It shows in the way they start checking your page more often. It shows in the way they bring up your name in conversations just to downplay you, because downplaying is their way of trying to shrink what they can no longer reach. Your job is not to pretend you don't feel anything. Your job is to not let what you feel drag you back into a cycle that almost destroyed you. Silence is not about pretending you're made of stone. It's about choosing not to give your energy to people who haven't earned it. It's about accepting that not everyone deserves front row access to your heart. It's about finally believing that your peace matters more than their curiosity. So yes, your silence makes them uncomfortable, not because you're playing games, but because you've stopped playing theirs. And that's the difference. Childish silence punishes, stoic silence protects. Childish silence tries to hurt, stoic silence tries to heal. For the first time, you're not asking, how do I get them back? You're asking, how do I get myself back? And that question, my friends, is the beginning of everything. Let this be your reminder. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to prove your value to someone who couldn't see it. You don't need to respond to every knock on the door of your peace. Your stillness is speaking loudly to them, to you, to the world watching you choose yourself. Write this in the comments. My silence is my power. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that the quiet you've stepped into is not emptiness, it's elevation. And stay with me, because next we're going to step into how distance and absence don't just protect you, they make them finally see what they carelessly lost. Number 4. Why distance makes them see what they missed. People only recognize the value of peace once they lose access to the person who created it. Distance is a strange teacher, my friends. It's quiet, it's slow, it's subtle, but it reveals more truth than 100 conversations ever could. When you step back, when you stop trying, when you stop over-giving, when you stop bending yourself into shapes just to keep the connection alive, something begins to shift in ways they never expected. They don't feel it at first. They think your distance means you're finally letting them go so they can move on. They think it's a green light for their ego. But distance has a way of turning into a mirror, reflecting back the reality they never wanted to face. Imagine this. You're walking down a hallway with paintings lining the walls. But while you're close, you can't see the picture, only brushstrokes, tiny details, little imperfections. It looks normal, even boring. But the farther you step back, the more the full image appears. Suddenly, what looked ordinary becomes stunning. What looked simple becomes complex. What looked replaceable becomes irreplaceable. That's exactly how people see you when you finally step away. They see the full picture they were too close, too distracted, or too entitled to appreciate. When you're near, they take you for granted. That's human nature. We mistake repeated access for permanent access. They got used to your presence. They got used to your kindness. They got used to your messages, your support, your emotional labor, your patience. They treated you like a constant, something they could return to whenever they pleased. But when you become distant, their world tilts in a way they don't know how to describe. At first, they tell themselves the same lie. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm fine. But distance is the one thing those lies cannot survive. Because every inch you step back removes a layer of illusion they built in their mind. You stepping away forces them to see the truth they avoided. You were the grounding, the calm, the softness, the emotional depth, the stability they didn't know how to honor. Distance exposes the difference between what they needed and what they wanted. What they wanted was something quick, exciting, comfortable, ego-feeding. What they needed was exactly what you brought. But people don't appreciate what they need until they face the consequences of losing it. This is why distance hits them slowly, like waves arriving one after another. The first wave is confusion. They notice the shift but don't understand it. The second is curiosity. They wonder why you're no longer available, why your responses changed, why your energy feels different. The third is discomfort. They begin to sense something slipping, your attention, your loyalty, your softness. And then the fourth wave, the one they never see coming. Realization. They realize they weren't just talking to anyone. They were talking to someone who made them feel alive, safe, and understood. In their mind, it starts with small questions. Why did they change? Why don't they reach out anymore? Why does it feel like they're happier without me? These questions grow heavier with time, and the more they try to distract themselves, the louder those questions echo in their head when the room gets quiet. Distance forces them to compare. Not because you want them to, but because it's inevitable. Every person they meet now feels different. Conversations feel shallow. Connections feel surface level. The comfort they once felt with you isn't there. The emotional safety you gave, without being asked, doesn't show up anywhere else. They can laugh with others, flirt with others, distract themselves with others, but something inside them knows it's not the same. You were not another person in their life. You were an energy, and energy doesn't duplicate itself. People often say, if they cared, they would have treated me right from the start. But sometimes people care in ways they don't recognize until too late. Some people don't know how to value peace until chaos teaches them the cost of losing it. Some don't know how to value consistency until inconsistency stabs them in the heart. Some don't know how to value love until loneliness shows them what they destroyed. Distance is brutal like that. It reveals the truth they tried to hide behind pride. It strips away their excuses. It removes your energy from their life, and suddenly they're left with only themselves, the part they were using you to escape. That's why they start thinking about you more. Not because you're chasing them, but because you're not. Not because you're speaking, but because you're quiet. Not because you're trying, but because you've stopped trying. Why does this hit them so hard? Because distance cuts through illusion. When you were close, they could lie to themselves. But distance forces honesty. It makes them see how differently they felt when you were in their life versus when you're not. They start realizing the things they dismissed as no big deal were the very things that made their life feel stable. Your presence lowered the noise in their mind. Your love softened the rough parts of their personality. Your energy made them feel grounded. Now, without you, everything feels heavier, louder, more chaotic. Even the strongest ego cracks under the weight of distance. It's not immediate, it's not dramatic, it's slow, it's quiet. It's in the moments they don't post on social media. It's in the nights where they stare at their phone wanting to text you but resisting because pride won't let them. It's in the mornings they wake up feeling a little empty but don't know why. Distance becomes the lens through which they finally see your worth. The lens they never used when you were standing right in front of them. And here's the most powerful part. You didn't have to do anything for this to happen. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You didn't prove. You simply stepped back. And by stepping back, you allowed reality to step forward. So let this be your reminder. Your distance isn't punishment. It's clarity. It's not revenge. It's revelation. You're not being cold. You're being wise. You're not losing anything. You're gaining peace. And they're gaining perspective they didn't want, but desperately needed. Write this in the comments. Distance reveals truth. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that stepping back isn't giving up, it's leveling up. And stay with me, because what comes next is how their ego, no matter how strong, starts breaking under the weight of the truth distance forces them to face. Number 5. Their ego fights the truth, but always loses. Ego is loud in the beginning, my friends, but truth is patient, and truth always gets the last word. When reality starts creeping in, their first instinct is not to accept it, it's to fight it. They don't wake up one day and say, "Wow, I really messed up losing that connection." No! Their ego steps in like a lawyer that refuses to lose a case. It starts building arguments, excuses, stories, anything to avoid the simple confession, "I threw away something real." That's why, at first, what's happening inside them doesn't look like regret. It looks like denial dressed up as confidence. You'll see it in the phrases they repeat to themselves. "It wouldn't have worked anyway." "They were too emotional." "I need my freedom." It's not wisdom talking, it's self-protection. Their ego is trying to defend them from the discomfort of seeing themselves clearly. Because seeing yourself clearly hurts when you've been the one causing damage. So instead of saying, "I hurt them," they say, "They were crazy." Instead of saying, "I was selfish," they say, "I outgrew them." This is the ego's favorite trick. Change the label so the truth feels less sharp. Imagine someone standing in front of a cracked mirror. The reflection is distorted, bent, broken, and a little ugly. But instead of fixing the mirror, they put on sunglasses and pretend everything looks fine. That's what ego does. It tries to tint reality. It doesn't fix the problem, it hides it. But the cracks are still there, and deep down, they feel them. Ego fights the truth in stages. At first, it mocks it. "I don't miss them. I'm good." Then it minimizes it. "Okay, Maybe I think about them once in a while, but it's nothing. Then it rationalizes it. I mean, anyone would miss a familiar person. It doesn't mean I was wrong. This is the inner war they go through when distance and silence start working on them. Your absence starts pulling at something inside them, and their ego immediately pushes back, terrified of losing control. They distract themselves harder. More noise, more people, more scrolling, more "I'm fine" performances. They might even jump into something new, not because they're ready, but because it gives their ego someone to point to and say, "See, I'm over it." But the thing about using people as proof is that eventually those people leave too, or fail to fill the void. Then the ego is left standing there, out of tricks, watching the truth walk slowly toward it. Why is this part so uncomfortable for them? Because this is where they start to feel the split inside, who they pretend to be versus who they actually are. On the outside, they're still telling the old story. On the inside, something doesn't line up anymore. They remember your consistency in moments when the people around them aren't dependable. They remember your understanding when they're suddenly met with coldness. They remember your patience when they run into partners who don't tolerate their behavior. The comparisons start uninvited, and with every one of them, truth gains ground and ego loses a little more. You might be thinking, if all of this is happening, why don't they just admit it? Why don't they apologize? Why don't they come back and say what they really feel? Because admission requires humility, and humility is exactly what ego fears most. To admit they were wrong means facing the guilt of hurting you. It means acknowledging they weren't as wise, as strong, or as innocent as they claimed. It means dropping the performance and showing up as a human being instead of a character. That's terrifying to someone who built their identity on always being right. The bigger their ego, the louder it fights. It will push them to say things to themselves like, "They've probably moved on anyway, so why bother?" Or, "If I reach out now, I'll look weak." It twists the situation so that doing the courageous thing, owning up, apologizing, feels like losing. So they silence themselves and keep pretending. But pretending doesn't erase the pressure building inside. It only delays it. Think of truth like water behind a dam. Ego is the wall. At first, the wall held. It's proud, solid, unshaken. But over time, the water keeps pressing. More memories, more comparisons, more emptiness when the distractions fade, more quiet moments when your name floats through their mind uninvited. Tiny cracks appear, a little leak here, a small drip there. They patch it up with denial. "It's nothing, I'm just nostalgic." But the pressure doesn't stop. One day, without any dramatic announcement, the dam doesn't hold the same way it used to. The water seeps through. That's when their chest feels heavy. That's when their mind feels crowded. That's when their mood shifts and they can't quite name why. You have to understand this. Ego doesn't lose in a big explosion. It loses in small, private moments. It loses when they hear your favorite song and can't pretend it doesn't hit. It loses when someone mentions your name and they feel that little twist in their stomach. It loses when they scroll past your picture and linger half a second too long. It loses when they realize the peace they felt with you hasn't shown up since. Bit by bit, truth erodes pride. From your side, it can be frustrating because you don't see any of this. You don't see the inner war. You only see the outer act. But that's why you can't base your healing on their visible behavior. You can't wait for their ego to surrender before you give yourself permission to move on. Their battle with the truth is their journey, not your responsibility. Your journey is about choosing your peace over their delay. And here's the part that should empower you. No matter how hard their ego fights, it will never win against time and truth. It can stall, it can delay, it can create illusions, but it cannot rewrite what actually happened. It cannot erase what you were in their life. It cannot replace the energy you brought. At some point, they will feel it fully. Whether they ever admit it to you or not, they will know. That knowing will live inside them long after the performance ends. You, on the other hand, don't have to live in that war. You're choosing honesty now. You're choosing growth now. You're choosing to see yourself clearly now. That's not weakness. That's a strength most people never reach because their ego is too loud. Write this in the comments. My truth is stronger than their ego. Let that be your reminder. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you're not waiting for their pride to fall. You're already walking in your own clarity. And stay with me because next we're going to step into the part that matters most. How, while their ego is busy losing its silent war, you are quietly becoming someone they can no longer reach. Number 6. Meanwhile, you grow stronger in the quiet. Sometimes the biggest plot twist, my friends, is realizing the pain that almost broke you was actually the gym that built you. While they're busy wrestling with a truth their ego can't swallow, you're in a completely different season. Your life doesn't stop because they couldn't value you. It pauses, it trembles, it hurts, but it doesn't end. In the quiet they left you with, something begins to change. At first, it doesn't feel like growth. It feels like emptiness, like walking into a house after everyone has gone home. The noise is gone, but so is the comfort. You look around and think, what do I even do with this silence? What you don't see yet is that this is the exact space where your next version is about to be built. Imagine your heart like a city after a storm. Streets flooded, windows shattered, lights out. It looks destroyed. But once the storm passes, the rebuilding begins. Walls are reinforced stronger than before. Broken structures are replaced with better ones. New systems are put in place so that the next storm doesn't hit as hard. That's what's happening inside you. The version of you that depended on their attention, that begged for understanding, that shrunk to keep the peace. That version is being cleared out. In its place, you're building boundaries, self-respect, and emotional discipline. You're learning that your value doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from being aware of who you are, even when no one's clapping. In the quiet, you start doing small things that seem irrelevant at first. You take a walk without checking your phone. You drink your coffee slowly instead of refreshing your notifications. You pick up hobbies you abandoned while you were too busy overthinking them. You reconnect with friends, with family, with your own goals. You stop rehearsing what you would say if they came back and start asking, what do I want if they don't? Each of these small choices doesn't look dramatic, but together they are rewiring your entire emotional system. You're going from reactive to reflective, from begging to choosing, from trying to be enough for them to being enough for yourself. The beautiful part is this. You don't have to announce this upgrade to anyone. You don't have to post, I'm healing or I'm unbothered. Real growth is quiet, almost secret. People will just start to feel it when they're around you. Your energy will shift, your eyes will look clearer, your voice will sound steadier. The things that used to trigger you won't hit the same, and if they ever circle back, they'll feel it the most. They won't be coming back to the same version of you they took for granted. They'll be facing someone who knows their worth, who doesn't argue with red flags anymore, who can love deeply without losing themselves in the process. That's the real win. Not their apology, not their regret, not their "you were right." The real win is that you used what hurt you to grow you. You turned silence into strength. You turned distance into clarity. You turned what tried to break you into the foundation that now holds you up. So let this be your declaration today. You are not stuck. You are becoming. Write this in the comments right now. I rise in silence. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that this quiet season is not your ending. It's your rebirth. And if this message spoke to your heart, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you feel moved to support this work further, you can also tap the super thanks button. But most importantly, stay with me, because your story from here only gets stronger.